Very good evening to all our viewers. Welcome to this most amazing webinar on No More Leaks, Break the Silence during World Continence Week. It's a very interesting topic that we have chosen for this webinar, which is being hosted by the Times of India in association with MSN Laboratories. Urinary incontinence is a problem that a lot of people suffer from. Of course, it was supposedly female-centric problem till some time ago, and there were a lot of myths surrounding this. It is no more a female-centric problem. There are a lot of people in multiple age groups suffering from incontinence. The issues are so diverse and so varied that most of us who suffer from this problem go to hospitals and take medical advice very late. These and many more myths besides the problem itself will be spoken about in detail by our esteemed panel this afternoon, which I would like to introduce. Dr. Suresh Patankar, who is Chief Urologist at ACE Hospital, Pune, located at Endwana. Dr. Patankar is also Professor of Urology at BJ Government College and Sassoon General Hospital, Pune. Sir has been honored with the highest award in urology from the Urological Society of India and Medical Council of India. He has devised his own surgical techniques for urological procedures. And may I add that he is most likely the only Indian national to hold the maximum number of patents on formulations for treating urological conditions. We heartily welcome you to this webinar, sir. Dr. Deepak Kirpekar is extensively practicing both in India and overseas. He's Director and Chief Urologist at High Tech Urology. Besides being a member of urological associations both in India and the US, Dr. Kirpekar is a visiting professor both in the US and the UK. He has to his credit over 25 presentations and 3 book chapters. That apart, he has conducted 66 live operative workshops. He has won the Mayor's Award Pune City in 2006 and has been President, Urological Society of India, 2014-15. Welcome, sir. Thank you for taking time out to be with us today. Dr. Vilas Sable is Professor and Head of Department Urology, Dr. D.Y. Patil Medical College, Pimpri. He's practicing urologist at genitourinary surgeon in Pimpri Chinchwad at Bhosri since 1996. He's been in the circuit for over 25 years now. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Dr. Prakash Patwardhan, consultant urologist at Dinanath Mangeshkar Hospital, Pune. He has spent over 20 years here. Before that, Dr. Patwardhan was at Sanjeevan Hospital, where he spent 10 years. A very senior professional, and we're looking forward to his inputs today. Welcome, sir. Dr. Jaydeep Date is consultant urologist at Pune Hospital and Dinanath Mangeshkar Hospital. He is MCH and DNB in urology from Mulji Bhai Patel Urology Hospital, Nadia, and KM Hospital, Mumbai. Sir has been practicing in Pune for the past 30 years. A very warm welcome to you too, sir. So on that note, we'd like to take the webinar forward. We start with a question addressed to Dr. Kirpekar. Sir, in your understanding, what is urinary incontinence? And why is it so prevalent these days?
Thank you.
So,
at the outset, I would like to thank Times Group, Times of India, and MSN for organizing this meeting. It's a wonderful thought to educate people about urinary incontinence. Technically speaking, loss of bladder control, which results into urinary leak, is urinary incontinence. There are multiple types in it, but before we go on to what types they are, I think it would be very essential to know certain basic facts. Why are we continent? bladder is a very unique muscular organ which has an ability to store and expand and on command contract and empty. Bladder is supported by urethra, which is a tube which is joined to exterior. On this urethra is a tight muscular ring which pinches the urethra. So combination of pinching of a urethra and ability of the bladder to store keeps us continent. Any variation with increased bladder pressure or reduced pinching will result into incontinence. Incontinence is a very serious business. Somehow people don't report it so much in India as compared to the Western world. And I think it is the right of every human being to be dry and continent. I would just summarize by saying there are a couple of basic types of incontinences. One is a true incontinent, which is leaking urine not associated with the act of passing urine. Urge incontinence is you have a desire to pass urine and you cannot control and you leak. Stress incontinence, which is when you cough, laugh, jump, or sneeze, you leak. These are the primary three things to remember, to diagnose, so that we can formulate a treatment.
Thank you so much, sir. I think this is a very valid point to take the discussion forward. So when we look at urine incontinence, Dr. Date, would you like to talk to us about which kind of individual is more prone to urinary incontinence? Or is it the female population? Is it the old population? Is it young people? This is something that our viewers would possibly gain great insight from you.
Incontinence is not really or not confined to one particular age. Incontinence affects all the ages. But in the younger age, there are reasons are different, and the older age, the reasons are different. Generally speaking, older people are more prone to incontinence because of the changes which happen due to age. The muscles which become weaker, the bladder changes its properties, and also some neurological changes take place. All this affects the continence mechanism. As Dr. Kirpekar has said, that the bladder stores urine. When you don't want to pee, it lets you store even more. That property changes with age. So what we call as aging process, the bladder doesn't store as much urine as the young people. So the bladder has a tendency to contract on its own and leak out. Also, older people do have neurological issues. Some people get Parkinson, diabetes. Diabetes changes your neurological innervation on the bladder, the control mechanism. All that affects the elder people. And female are unique because they undergo stress of pregnancies, and that mechanical stress of pregnancy or the passing of the fetus through the perineum causes some degree of anatomical disruption of the control mechanism. So these are the factors which are responsible for majority of the incontinences.
Sir, which means that it is not only women who are 70% more prone to it. So that kind of is a myth, is it? Sir?
Definitely, because elderly people, elderly males especially, they also have issues related to prostate. They have issues related to urinary infections, issues related to diabetes, issues related to drugs, could be diuretics or any other drugs which can cause or aggravate incontinence, neurological problems. All these are definitely not just limited to females. In fact, males suffer equally.
Thank you, sir.
Jaideep, I want to add to this.
Yes.
In female patients, we get stress urinary incontinence more because of this small urethra, and the females have to bear the child and the descent of uterus happens usually. And in female population, usually the stress urinary incontinence are seen in a more percentage than the male population. That's what I want to add up there.
Sir, just taking this point forward with you, Dr. Patwardhan. So,
Yeah.
since we are saying that, the female population possibly due to pregnancy is more prone to it.
Yeah.
Is this a Western world phenomenon, or is it a global phenomenon, or does it affect European women more than us? What is your take on that, sir?
And the thing is, the female have a different anatomy than the male. They have a uterus, which is of course a childbearing organ, and the proximity of this uterus to the urinary bladder is that leads to the descent of the uterus itself with the bladder when they are having a multiple childbirths. Then after the menopause, after the female, they get stoppage of menses, they have different hormonal setup. And in that cases, the urethral support gets decreased in those patients. And so in females, they have a more percentage of stress urinary incontinence and other incontinence.
Very valid point. Thank you. Thank you so much for enlightening us, sir. Taking this point forward with Dr. Vilas.
Yeah.
Sir, a simple question which possibly our audiences would also like to understand is that how is it diagnosed? So how would I know that I am suffering from it, and when do I need to see you?
It is reasonably straightforward. Basically, urinary incontinence is involuntary leak, as Dr. Kirpekar sir initially elaborated. So there doesn't need a diagnostic test to diagnose urinary incontinence. It is a symptom per se itself is diagnostic. Now, what problem remains is what sort of incontinence, what type of incontinence it is there, and due to what reason it is there. So now in that cases, whether it is urge incontinence, whether it is stress incontinence, whether it is a true incontinence, and few more things I would like to add to Kirpekar's description. At 2 ages in childhood, and sometime even the childhood disease carried to adult age also, is nocturnal enuresis, that the child keep on leaking every time in the night. So that's also a type of incontinence which is suffered in the night. It creates an embarrassing situation to the kid as well as, and at times they can be at a growing age, they can be in girls can be at a marital age. So they leak, that's one. And then at the older age, there's another type of incontinence which is relatively problematic situation. What we call is a overflow incontinence. That also has to be kept in mind. Quite oftenly there is another disease, benign enlargement of prostate in old age males, where the bladder is over distended. The person does not realize it and he keeps on leaking. What he thinks is he's voiding in between a little quantity. Actually, it is a leak. So all these have to be considered. So urinary leakage itself is a disease and a diagnosis. But what we have to look for is what are the causes, what type of incontinence, what are the causes, and accordingly we'll have to treat the illness. So in cases of old age, what quite oftenly we discover is the person comes with a old age person, he is comfortable, comes up with abdominal distension. It's nice distension. He's quite comfortable. When we say that there's a lot of urine inside, so then he doesn't accept it. It is that extent. Normally, we cannot store urine in a large quantities. About 2 days back, I had seen a fellow who had 1800 ml in his bladder. So still he was comfortable. So all these ends have to be considered.
Interesting.
May I add one point here? There is one more type of incontinence. In spite of whole bladder and sphincter, everything being normal, the patient has a severe arthritis. Suppose they have a severe knee pain, or they are very old and they are not agile enough. So before going to the bathroom, they start leaking urine. So this type of incontinence, in spite of normal urinary system, is also there. In dementic people, in Alzheimer's, they have such type of urinary incontinence.
So, sir,
In spite of,
sorry, sir, you finished.
in spite of having normal bladder and
My point is that, sir, does that imply that it's actually in some patients it's more of a involuntary kind of a discharge, even though their bladder possibly is functional, but mentally they are not able to hold on to the urine. Is that also there when you said dementia cases and stuff like that?
yes.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Valid point, sir. Valid point. Moving a little forward, sir, and going to Dr. Patankar, since we've not addressed any question to you, sir. We've got an audience question which I don't want to miss. One gentleman by the name of Ashok Kulkarni has asked: how is prostate related to urinary incontinence? And I'd like to add one more question to that. But once, if you could answer this, sir, since it's just come from one of our viewers, we can then take the second question.
Can I answer that?
Certainly, sir. Certainly.
I just now spoke about it. Basically, prostate is a reason for obstruction. Prostate is a natural gland present in all males.
Okay.
After a certain point of time, there is some changes within the prostate, which is age related, and because of the testosterone hormone, which is a male hormone in our body. So that gives rise to changes. And luckily, in 80% of cases, it is non-cancerous enlargement of the prostate. But initially, the problems are taken as old age problems. That means the patient cannot void with good stream, cannot, he has to keep on going in the night. So which he just neglects as a part of an aging phenomena. And over the time, as he keeps on retaining larger and larger quantities, he starts leaking, which is, as I said, is an overflow incontinence. That's the only way how they can present with incontinence. And another way, sometime if the problem has been neglected, and even if we do a surgery, still they cannot be continent for more than one reason, because by that time the bladder muscles have really become weak and the person can keep leaking up after the surgery. He may not get adequate benefit because of the delay in surgery and other treatment modalities. And secondly, if the prostate has enlarged very huge size, the normal size is just about 15 to 20 gram in any young adults, you and me. But it at times can grow 100 grams, 200 grams, maybe like that. So if we remove that much size gland there, so it keeps us some defect. So for a time being, the person keeps on leaking during some activities. And that is peculiar. At bedtime in the sleep, he doesn't leak. But with activity, while coughing, while doing some normal routine chorus, he can leak. So that's the way how prostate people can leak.
So taking this point a little forward, sir, the same question, since you are on this subject. If it is remained untreated, let's say if somebody is over 65, 70 and he is leaking and he says he feels it's an old age kind of a symptom and it goes untreated, what could be the impact? Or should it, or should he try some home remedies, etc.?
That's to me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Since you are speaking on this, you can just take it forward.
Yeah. A untreated problem is going to create problem for his social well-being as well as mental well-being. And he will not join any social functions because he's leaking, he or she, whatever. Females are further prone for getting isolated socially. So there are not only medical, but other issues going to get created. And especially if there is an overflow sort of incontinence, the bladder is over distended, it can gradually lead to kidney failure, because the urinary tract is meant for excreting the urine from kidneys, then storing into the bladder and then leaving it outside the body. So if that cycle is obstructed at any level, if the urine is retained in the body, though it is leaking partially, the majority quantity is going to remain, create a pressure on the kidneys and hamper the kidney function.
Very valid, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So, Dr. Patankar, sir, we need you now. We've not heard you speaking, so we would like you to be with us. Sir, a very slightly complex issue that comes to mind is that how does one cope with incontinence. We are talking about treatment remedy, but here the problem is that it's becoming a social stigma for some people. Again, moving out among crowds is something that they would start avoiding, in my opinion, possibly, though I don't know anybody with this problem, but I'm sure that would be there. So if I am leaking, I would not want to go out. If I am leaking, I would get into a shell. I may become a kind of a person who is suffering from, at some point of time, reserved and other things, suicidal tendencies, whatever. So, sir, what is your understanding of how does someone cope with this, sir? Sir, what are the treatment options for urinary incontinence? If you can please highlight that, very nice.
First of all, I will go back 2 steps and say there is no reason for anybody to feel I am old and this cannot be treated. I think all incontinences, 99% of incontinences can be treated and make them into a dry people. Now, coming back to treatment options, the treatment entirely depends upon why is there an incontinence. Let me go step by step. If there has been any injury to the system with a gynec surgery, it creates a fistula, which is an abnormal opening between the uterus, the bladder and the vagina. This is 100% treatable by surgery. I'm afraid there are no medications available. There are no home remedies available. This heals by itself. Otherwise, this can be 100% treated with surgery, which could be an open or a laparoscopic surgery. Now let's come to urge incontinence. Most of the women will suffer with urge incontinence, in which case we do certain basic studies like urodynamics, prove that they are due to urge incontinence. And in that case, we have number of drugs available, which are very good as far as controlling the bladder contractions are concerned. We have anticholinergics available. We have mirabegron now available. There are combinations available. But by that method, 90% of urge incontinence with change in lifestyle can be managed. If they are not still better, we have Botox available, which can be intravasically injected. That's as far as urge is concerned. Now let's come to the stress incontinence, primarily weakness in the pelvic floor, because of which the person leaks, in which case there are certain exercises like Kegel exercises helpful. Change in lifestyle is important. If the person is overweight, reduction in the weight is very necessary. Having done all that, if there is still an element of stress incontinence, then it can be repaired surgically. There are certain devices available temporarily to put in the vagina, but that doesn't last too long. So the definite repair to make a stress incontinence dry person would be a sling operation. We can have slings of various types available. Meshes are now discarded in the Western world. We still use them sometimes if necessary, but autologous slings are very much in use and they can be helpful. So most of the things can be managed. Vilas Sabre was talking about nocturnal enuresis. Yes, there are wonderful drugs available. Depsonil is one of them, which controls the young children. He was also talking about overflow incontinence, which is again a very important incontinence, in which case you need to deal with the prostate. You have to deal with the resistance of the outlet. You have to allow that bladder, which is over-distended, to shrink and hope that it starts functioning with minimum resistance. So I strongly believe an incontinent person must see a doctor, and we can help a person change his lifestyle completely and bring him back into the society.
So, Dr. Kirpekar, one small point. You said that it is also a kind of a disease that is caused by obesity, overweight. So, can we also say that lifestyle could bring about inconsistency to a point?
Minor leaks like stress and urge are related to lifestyle.
All right.
It would definitely change.
It would definitely change.
Lifestyle. If you change your sleeping habits, if you change normal dietary habits, it will definitely help a person.
Interesting.
Early stress to come to a no stress.
Right, right.
But a gross stress will not change with lifestyle. They will require a supportive therapy.
That's fair enough, sir. Thanks so much for enlightening me. We try to come back. Dr. Suresh, are you able to hear us, sir?
I can hear you very much.
Everybody. Lovely.
Loud and clear.
So my question to you was that very simple point is, we're talking about coping with incontinence, etc. The point here is that if one is on medication for other diseases, does this in also some way impact the bladder and the bladder functions and could lead to incontinence?
I will call it pseudo incontinence in such cases. Pseudo in the sense there is no incontinence because of some external factor gives a picture of incontinence, especially if you are on some diuretics, which are commonly given in cardiac patients. It is very common disease in old age groups. So they are the ones, they have to take diuretics. They can cause incontinence, and it is related not to the system fault, but related to the drugs. Plus, many times, if you see many of the patients, they are having diabetes, hypertension, some other comorbid conditions, lot of medications they are taking. They drink lot of fluid, if you see. And excess fluid intake itself. I've seen patients coming to me that somebody has told them good intake is good for the health. To the extent I've seen people taking to the 4.5 liters of water intake or liquid intake. Obviously, if you drink more water has to come out, giving a feeling that you are incontinent. In fact, one of the common advice to my especially elderly population, they come to me, ask them how much water you drink. Because somebody has told them good intake is good for the kidneys. But anything excess is bad. I tell them you reduce your fluid intake, especially before you are going to sleep. There is a habit for all of us to drink water. You can also try yourself. Take a glass of water just before going to the sleep, and I'm sure enough you will get an urge in the night. So these are the drugs, some kind of habits has to be taken into consideration in the history before we label it as a true incontinence and giving some medications. One more point which I just wanted to go back and suggest is anxiety, stress. Good sleep, you don't get up. If you don't get a good sleep, you keep on getting up. So stress related, anxiety related, because micturition center is in the brain, which is related to the emotions. During exam times, if you go back, during stress times, you feel like passing urine or sometimes motion also. So there is a lot of overlay of anxiety to the stress incontinence. Secondly, why we see more incontinence in elderly people is as you age, your sleep becomes less. And that is one of the reasons your anxieties are more, your stress factors are more. You are not able to cope up. There are many things in your life. And they are the ones, they are also giving rise to, you can say, nocturnal aneurysm. So that has also to be considered, because my approach will be more conservative first. First try the lifestyle changes. What is the reason behind it? Unless you find out some disease for that. And then probably one can go on the various therapies as drugs have been suggested. And if there is a surgical cause, that need to be corrected by whatever surgery is required. Thank you.
Which means, sir, that even this habit that some of us have, that drinking two or three glasses of water or 1 liter of water in the morning as soon as you wake up may also lead to incontinence, which would be possibly misinterpreted as I'm having a weak bladder.
What happens during daytime when we are conscious and awake, we don't mind going to frequently. This complaint is more troublesome when you go to the sleep and the sleep breaks. So if you take a liter of water in the morning, obviously will go more often because the kidney has to throw it out. It cannot retain. So
Very
obviously that is a pseudo frequency.
Ah.
Water intake, if you ask me, it should be good, but it should not be at one time. It should be given in a small quantities all throughout the day and not before the sleep. Especially, we also tell my patient don't take any tea or coffee or any alcoholic or beverages before going to the sleep. That itself is one of the cause.
Okay. Okay.
One of the cause to
Yes,
get
sir.
up in the night, and it is very common problem.
Okay.
Another thing I just wanted to add to this, you asked sometime one of the question is it a global problem? If you see the overactive bladder, where I'm in practice for last more than 40, was not so common, but nowadays we see more common even in the young population. So obviously this is one of the lifestyle disorder. Even it has to our role in the diet, our habits, everything. Stress has also added to the overactive bladder, and that has also to be taken into consideration while treating this patient. They need some kind of an not a psychiatric but a psychological counseling to find out exactly what is happening to them.
Very true. Thank you, sir. So, Dr. Date, coming back to you, sir, a couple of audience questions that have come in, and some of them are interesting, some of them we can move out. One of them says that what is the medication for my child with no urge for urination at all? So there is no urge for urination, but this person possibly does not know whether the child is suffering for incontinence or is it lack of water maybe. So what's your advice, sir, here?
Actually, the child needs to be investigated thoroughly for some neurological condition, because no urge is not a very common thing in a child. What can happen is that there are children who because of poor toilets in the classroom or in the school, tend not to go to toilets in the school, and they keep the urine held since morning till they come back from school. And that actually causes what we call as a myogenic failure. That means the bladder keeps on over distending and they lose the sensation of bladder filling, and they have urinary problem. They can have urinary infections or they can have loss of control. So you need to find out why this is happening, and poor toilets and unhygienic conditions is one of the causes that you need to look at as one of the causes, and definitely needs to get investigated in terms of neurological problems if the child has some spinal issues. Spina bifida, as we call it, can cause problems with the bladder sensation and therefore the incontinence.
So our point to our viewer is that this problem should not go untreated. It requires urgent medical advice before she takes anything further. I think that's a valid point, sir. Thank you so much, sir, Dr. Date. Dr. Sable, for you, there's an interesting question also that's come here, is that my daughter, it says here, is leaking at night. I don't know how to manage this issue. Valid. Yeah.
Basically, before answering this question, I'll just go back to the previous question, yes, which Dr. Jaydeep Date had answered.
Yes, sir.
Child, especially a girl child, not having urge to void, there could be a familial and social problems. Quite oftenly, the stigma here in our scenarios, in our continent, is the females try to keep secrecy as far as going to the toilets. And over the time, the female child comes up in the same environment that my mother does not go for toilet whole day. Whenever mother goes, she goes silently without noticing, and she just mimics the same. And at the end, eventually what they land up is something called as a lazy bladder syndrome, as Dr. Jaydeep Date described. The bladder has not been trained to void at a regular interval. So it is sort of a poor voiding training. So parents have to really watch it carefully. Besides that, obviously, as Dr. Date said, certain diseases at birth, spinal disorders can give rise to. But before that, these behavioral problems have to be searched for, and appropriate counseling has to be done for the same. Now, coming to the child who's leaking at night time. this can happen in male child as well as in female child. In female, as they keep growing, and especially as they come to the pubertal, post-pubertal age or at a marital age, if they are leaking at night time, it really creates a big problem, social problem for the girl child as well as the family. Now they are worried about how to get her married and other issues. So most of the childs, again, about this nocturnal, we call this as a nocturnal enuresis, leaking or voiding during night time. So this is again a sort of a delayed milestone at the brain level. So what routine advice I give to the family? Firstly, I ask the child to wait outside and I tell the parent, your child has a problem, but you are not supposed to keep on instigating the child. You have to tolerate that. So unless you tolerate, the child will never become confident and the problem may keep on lingering all along. So I counsel the parents, then I call the child inside. I tell the child exactly the opposite in front of them. You do not have a major disease. If you cooperate with the treatment, you will become continent very soon. So I want the child to become more confident, develop his natural habits at a regular interval. For night time, as Patankar sir told, the intake has to be reduced. This is simple water management. Daytime, let them take adequate fluid. From 7 p.m. onwards, reduce the intake. The child, one should make a habit to have an alarm to get up in the nights, and a simple tablet, what we give, imipramine, about 25 milligram at bedtime, definitely helps these childs to get continence. Again, what happens, a common experience of us, with 1 or 2 weeks treatment or say 1 month treatment, the child voiding nocturnal leaking episodes go down sizably. The parents immediately start taking trial. They stop the drugs, they come back after 3 months. My child was okay during the treatment, now leaking back. So this treatment has to be gradual. Simultaneously, the child's confidence has to increase. And I instruct the child to wear appropriate size diaper at his age inside the clothes. This does 2 jobs. First is, he gets a confidence that even if he leaks, he's not going to soil the undergarments and the bedding, which is going to give a foul smell and become a point of criticism. So it has to be a complete family counseling rather than the child only.
So a point of view to our viewer is that this is not something serious. At the same time, if your daughter is leaking, once again, you need to understand the cause, consult your doctor, and possibly take it forward from there. Thank you so much, Dr. Sapre. Moving forward, Dr. Patwardhan, for you. Sir, another question from our one of our viewers is that I'm 65 years old and I urinate 2 or 3 times at night, which is very common. And a sonography has revealed some residue remains. Have you any advice for me?
I presume that he is a male person.
I'm presuming so. Though there's no name.
So in these patients, male patients especially, after the age of 60, 65, this is a common age group for the prostatic ailments. Means usually a benign prostatic enlargement is there in this age group. And if his sonography reveals prostatic enlargement with residual urine in the bladder, then if the residual urine is significantly high, then he has to consult a urologist and take a medication or surgery, whatever that surgeon tells him. And that residual urine is a real problem. Actually, it can lead to back pressure changes in the kidney ureters and can lead to secondary infections. And this can lead to incontinence, that is what is called as overflow incontinence, if that residual urine is very high. That's what I want to tell.
Interesting.
Dinyar.
Yes, sir.
Just small thing I want to add it here.
Certainly, sir.
Sir, getting up in the night once. Many times in my patient population, small change in the habit, they take it very seriously. I mean, I'm getting up once or twice. Is it something abnormal? No. Not necessarily, because as the age advances, couple of physiological things that happens. One thing, as I said, what is known as a physiological control of the higher system becomes less. So that is one of the reason you get them in the night. Secondly, as I said, fluid intake. And thirdly, if you see the physiology of urine formation, as you are, when you are young, the formation of urine is about 2/3, 1/3. That means you form the urine about 2/3 and 1/3 in the night time. So generally at the young age population, we don't get up. Now this hormonal imbalance, as we see, is there at the advanced age group. So there is more formation, and that is again more so in diabetes patients. What is on diabetes insipidus? So that is also one of the physiological cause to get them in the night. So every time getting in the night once or twice need not be a real concern, provided there are no other diseases. It should be handled, I think, more of at a convenience and conviction to the patient. You don't worry, you will be all right. And this is a very common problem.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So we continue with you, sir. One more question has come from the audience. Again, this also seems a little interesting, is that, this gentleman says that is Ayurvedic medication going to help me resolve my prostate problems? Asking an allopathic doctor is a little out of space here, but then all the same.
I can answer that because I also done some Ayurveda, so I can answer
yes,
that.
Sir.
You asked the right person.
Perfect.
Yeah, I tell you, sir, Ayurvedic medicines is like a remedies at a initial level. I mean, even there are certain drugs which have been proven to have some kind of a alpha blockers to some extent. One must get before we start Ayurvedic medicines. The unfortunate part of the story is most of the time these medications are taken at the OTC, over the counter level. Secondly, it not necessarily they are being prescribed by a qualified urologist, because unless you investigate the person and find out there is nothing much, no surgery required, Ayurvedic medicine has got some role to play. But obviously, again, I must, undercoat, it should be done at a very scientific level. The drugs which are being, you can see the lot of advertisement in the newspapers. We have seen patients coming to us taking this medicine for a long time without getting any medical examination and landing into lots of complications. So I would say yes and no both to my question. As I said, let it be a urologist or a qualified doctor who takes the decision about these medicines. I'm not against the Ayurvedic medicine as such.
Perfect.
The way who prescribes, that is more important.
I think that answers the question fairly, perfectly. So coming back to Dr. Kirpekar, once again, sir. Question for you is incontinence a normal part of aging? Can we do anything like physical exercises to keep our muscles and systems firm?
That's absolutely true. Incontinence could be a normal part of aging, particularly in women who have born children, have been through normal deliveries, like 3-4 normal deliveries. The muscles are stretched, the muscles are weak, and that goes along with the age. And so incontinence could be labeled as a part of aging process. Exercises, Kegel exercises is a very important exercises, and that can restore some strength into the pelvic floor for them to become continent. But if a person is incontinent, we just cannot say this is a part of aging and accept it. We still need to investigate to find out if there is underlying cause, because cause can be treated. Aging, I cannot treat. But if there is an underlying cause for the incontinence, I will not blame the age part of it. I will treat the cause. Just to give an example, if there's a 65-year-old lady who comes with incontinence and we find that she has a prolapse and that's why she is leaking, a repair of a prolapse would make her dry. Just because she is 65 and because of the age she is leaking is not acceptable to me. I would certainly investigate every person who has incontinence, because there is a ray of hope somewhere to make them dry.
So which means, sir, that there are physical exercises that are prescribed also pelvic exercises maybe, and whatever else, so that the muscles get stronger. Is that there?
Yes, it is obvious that if you do exercises and you strengthen your pelvic floor,
okay, sir,
going to make your muscles stronger, which hopefully will prevent the incontinence or reduce the incontinence, would be a better way of saying it than prevention.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir.
See, there is a treatment available, as what Deepak has said. Once you rule out there is no treatable surgical cause, what is known as, where it helps to strengthen your muscles and you can feel whether you are improving or not. But this is a very good, I would say, early conservative treatment.
So it's an exercise, sir. What is this exactly?
Stress incontinence part of it. It is known as pelvic floor exercise biofeedback.
It's an exercise.
It's an exercise, but it tells you whether you are doing properly or not.
Oh, I see.
And you keep on improving and improving on that.
Okay, okay. So that's one way.
Especially, there is some incontinence what we see after surgeries. It is not that incontinence is seen only in the patient.
I see.
But sometimes even after some surgeries, we can see this incontinence, which can be managed with such pelvic floor exercises and biofeedback mechanisms.
Okay.
And they're really good ones. I mean, obviously, along with the drug, general exercises, specific pelvic floor exercises will certainly help to overcome this problem.
Okay. So, sir, since we are on this, just tell us if incontinence is anyway dietary related also. So, is it something that, our maybe wrong diet, I don't know, spicy diet, is it something to that?
Yeah, to some extent, yes, not completely, partially, yes. Just said certain food articles, that especially if you take tea and coffee, they contain caffeine and tannin.
Tea and coffee.
The bladder and they can produce beverages. Then the diet which produces constipation, especially the low residue diet, if you are constipated, there is a pressure on the that to urgencies. Very good, definite role in management of the incontinence. Certainly, yes.
Agreed, sir. So, which means that diet has a role to play. We need to be conscious of what we eat, and tea, coffee intake could be limited. Perfect.
Yes,
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. That's quite an eye-opener.
Diabetics would be more prone for it too.
Sorry, sir?
The diabetics will also be more.
That's so. I see.
So taking care of your diabetic status will also be very important.
Will also be important. Okay. I think a very valid point. Interesting point. Dr. Date, coming back to you, sir. There's an audience question, but I don't know whether this is any relevant to us or not. The question says that what test is advised for prostate if a person is suffering from prostate? So I wouldn't know whether this could be taken up or not. What test is advised is what the question is from one of our viewers. If somebody wants to know whether he is suffering from prostate or not.
So it's a very general question, but
I thought the same. Yes, sir.
That the physical examination by the doctor, his symptoms would decide what test is needed. There is no general test to be done for prostate. His symptoms, what his complaints are, and what the doctor finds in the physical examination will dictate what kind of tests are needed.
Totally agreed.
Generally speaking, an ultrasound examination, urine examination, and a blood test called the PSA would be a standard test for somebody who's aging and might be suffering from prostate cancer, whatever.
Maybe our answer to our viewer would also be that please consult your doctor before taking advice, because we don't know what exactly is the cause, which is valid. Sir, taking my point a little forward. Is there something that only surgery and implants is the solution for incontinence? So is it that if there is a urinary problem, if there's incontinence, there is no way that medication is going to help me? Is surgery the only way out? Or
I can answer that.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If the incontinence is due to a fistula, which is an abnormal connection between bladder and the vagina, through which the urine is leaking, I guess surgery is the only option available. Now, which way you do it are options available depending upon where the fistula is. It can be done from below, it can be done from above, it can be done laparoscopically, it can be done robotically. That's entirely a different issue. But if you have an established fistula, in that case, I do not see any other option but surgery to cure the patient. So that's the only condition I can see where there is no other option but surgery. I'm sure my all colleagues will agree with that.
Fair enough, sir. Audience question, one more coming up. Dr. Sable, you could take this if you feel. The question says that, sir, irritation and burning sensation all the time post urination. I cannot understand what is wrong. Is this a prostate issue? A male patient is that. He doesn't know why he's having burning sensation all the time post urination. I'm sure he's very worried.
Firstly,
yes, sir.
Actually, that particular symptom is not related to the current topic, today's topic, but still I'll take it. Burning micturition in a young adults can be due to different reasons as compared to the old age people. Quite oftenly, it indicates that there is some associated infection in the urinary tract, but not always necessary. Sometimes it could be due to what we call as an overactive bladder, means the bladder is in action when it should not be, like any hyperactive child in the school. So if there is burning micturition, especially after voiding, it could be due to problem in the urethra like prostatic infection and inflammation. Prostatitis is a common, here I don't know the age group of particular person, but if it is a middle age, in that cases, it is a pretty common clinical problem where they keep to us with recurrent episodes of what we call this as a dysuria, persistent painful micturition or pain or burning after the urination activity. So it is, one has to search for any infections in the urinary tract. Quite oftenly we do urine test, we do rectal examination, clinical examination. If the prostate is tender, we do certain investigations like sonography, and we do what we call as prostate express prostatic smear. We give a massage to the prostate, collect the urine sample immediately after that, and if that shows some infection, we go ahead with the treatment accordingly.
Okay, sir. I think
you should not also miss conditions like bladder stones or even bladder cancer, which are responsible for the similar symptoms. So just don't assume that it is an infection and take some over-the-counter medications for infection. I think that is.
So that means this gentleman needs to get himself investigated. Point noted, sir. One more question from the audience. It says, sir, poliomyelitis woman is having night bedwetting. Okay. The lady concerned is taking medication for the past 1 year. Her age is 56. Sir, my question is, how much time should she continue with, obviously with medication? He's wanting to know how long should medication continue with this individual who is 56 years old and suffering from this problem, sir. So anybody could take it. Dr. Patankar could take it.
Now this question is, I'll put it in a diagnosis of overactive bladder. That means there is a lot of urgency and the person is not able to control the urine and she starts the medication. Basically, overactive bladder is a physiological disorder, not a disease, because of the various reasons. So most of the time, the problem is if you take the right, you're off the medicine, the problem recurs. In these patients, apart from the medication, the other strategies also to be told. That means improve your bladder training, reduce the factors which aggravate these problems. To cure any of these medicines, what we had discussed about overactive bladder, or they never cure as long as stop the medicines, the problem recurs. We depend only on the medicines. I am other strategies to reduce my overactive bladder problem and gradually one win off these medicines. Otherwise, they may become sort of addict and a psychological dependence takes place, and that is a very not a very good thing, I would say.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, that lady is suffering from poliomyelitis, she says.
That's what PO. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Myelitis.
Actually,
yes, sir.
That is not related with the urinary incontinence as such.
Okay.
And that lady should be properly investigated for the urinary incontinence. Because poliomyelitis per se will not lead to urinary incontinence.
And this person says that this lady is on medicine for 1 year, and obviously there is what I am gathering from the question.
You should get investigated
rather than continuing medication. That's I hope the viewer is listening in. I think you need investigation for this. Sir, one more question, last question from the viewers before we come back, because in the interest of time, we won't be able to take more questions, though there are a lot of more questions coming in. Question says, if a patient is having a hydrocele disease, have I pronounced it properly, sir?
Yes, you have.
Yeah, is there any correlation with urinary incontinence?
Answer is no.
Only one thing is, if it's a huge hydrocele, then he might be soiling his skin while passing normal urine.
Okay.
That's what is the...
So obviously he...
Can I take that ahead?
Sir.
Basically here, hydrocele, lot many things are labeled as hydrocele in our continent, especially in northern India, UP, Bihar. So one has to really confirm it on physical examination whether it is a hydrocele. In certain acute patients, those who are bedridden, hope that it is not a scrotal edema where the scrotum has really engorged like anything because of fluid accumulating in the scrotal sac. So that has to be really differentiated if it is a recent onset. So one should not just neglect it as a hydrocele. Hydrocele, it is a pretty benign entity. As Dr. Date said, there is no correlation with incontinence. We can't assume hydrocele giving rise to incontinence.
Okay. Sir, one more question our reader wants to ask. He says one last one, so I will just take it forward. Is COVID-19, can it affect our bladder activity? If not, what are the parameters? But this has nothing to do with our seminar. It says over here, does COVID-19 affect our bladder activity? Okay, that could be a valid point. If not, what are the parameters for the treatment?
So
this is more COVID related.
COVID-19 is a very new disease. We don't know too much about it, but what we are finding is that it does affect bladder function in some individuals. Some individuals have gone into urinary retention, could not pass urine, some neurological dysfunction that takes place. Some patients keep on complaining of burning, the dysuria kind of a situation with no finding in physical examination or on urine examination. So we are still investigating this problem. We are still not really come to a conclusion how it affects the urinary tract or urinary function. But yes, there are cases which all of us have come across, which are post-COVID urinary issues. I think all of us must be having similar patients. Dr. Kirpekar?
Right. Thank you, sir. So now, in the interest of time, viewers and all our senior panelists, we will have to sum up, because we do realize that this is a very serious, pressing problem that is affecting our country and the rest of the world. There were myths around it that women are more prone to it. That is today being shattered and said, no, anybody is prone to bladder incontinence, urinary incontinence. There are exercises that could be done, medication. It is not necessary that if you are suffering from this problem, it's going to lead to cancer. But to rule out any possibility, I'm sure consulting your neurologist, going to your doctor, regular follow-ups will help you to overcome this problem. The other aspect is that, yes, the stigma around it has to go. We as common people must realize that at some point of time, grandmother's remedies are not going to work. Drinking excessive water and thinking that your bladders are going to kind of be lubricated, etc. I don't think that these are in today's medical terminologies, rational ways of looking at this. It is a problem, needs to be treated. It is a medical problem and needs to be treated through our medical fraternity. So on that note, I'd like to say a big thank you to all the panelists. Thank you so much for helping us understand this issue. A big thank you to all our viewers. And we do believe that going forward, issues like this would not be any more hidden under the closet. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Times of India and MSN for a wonderfully organized program. I'm sure people, viewers have enjoyed it and should be benefited with it.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dinesh,
Sir.
Must congratulate you conducted the orchestra very well.
Yes, sir, my knowledge is so limited in that I have tried my best.
So I'm afraid now overactive bladder will start consulting you, not us. That's great, but this really compliment to you, your team. Very well done, very well organized.
Thank you so
And
much.
especially I appreciate the efforts taken by your team that you try to do a dry run.
Yes, sir.
See, what is going to happen? This is a very big event for Times of India, MSN, and people who are watching it.
Very
They're
sweet.
spending their valuable time. So I really appreciate everything, including MSN team and all of you. Thank you very much. And keep on saying on such occasions again and again.
Thank you so much, sir.
And lastly, I'll tell my industrialist friend, yes, your problem has been discussed at length at a global level. Thank you.
Thank you so
So
much.
Patel,
Sir.
thanks Times of India and thanks MSN. On behalf of doctors, I'll just like to give some take-home message. Is that okay?
Certainly, sir.
Yeah. First is for the society at large, they should accept that this sort of problem exists. They should not hide it from themselves, from the family and from the medical community. Secondly, almost all of them can be cured or rehabilitated significantly. And not all of them are going to need surgery. Many of them can be managed with variety of other modalities, including lifestyle changes, avoiding beverages, some exercises, some tablets, and only in certain situations, surgery is the only remedy. I think all other panelists are senior and many of them are teachers to us also. They will agree with this take-home message.
Vilas, you're absolutely right.
Thank you, sir.
Vilas, thank you for summarizing it.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.